Well, shalom, shalom, shalom. Looks like we made it. We see we got in the room here. Okay, here you go, Sid. Sid usually riding shotgun with me. He won't be with me tonight. He's on the road, and hopefully he will be getting home safely as well. As Kay is with us too. She said, "Hello, family." So they are coming into the room. Also, Christina saying shalom, shalom, and shalom back to the whole house of Israel. Okay. They are, here we go. Got Geraldine saying something there as well. Shalom to all. Okay. Karaka. All right. All right. Well, looks like we got quite a few in there in the room. That's good. That's a good start in that. And then those of you that are kind of relaxing and got your word open and ready to turn and all of that, and have joining us, and maybe we'll look at this a little later as well. So we want to just to be an encouragement. I think one of my favorite word is building. So I always like to build up, and that's what it's all about. So we'll try to get in shortly here and get into a couple of things here maybe, and see what we will have. Let me switch this over here. Let's see. I want to probably, let's get this view of it. And that way we can be able to build from there. I want to be able to put a couple of scriptures up here as we go into this. When building, what we have to do, we have to calculate the cost. There's a cost to it. And we always want to start it with the things of the Most High, of course, right? And but this can go across every area because we know Torah is our life, right? That's our life. The scriptures is our life. And so because it is our life, then we want to be able to calculate up the cost. So that's what the Mashiach as well encourage us to do, is that when we go into something, before we do anything, so you can fill in the blank here, and that's I guess one of my favorite words. You can fill in the blank, whatever area it is that can build you up, right? But just to take out time. I think I was mentioning earlier that when I was talking to someone earlier, I was saying that when I was growing up, if I could have caught on to this earlier, it would have been nice. I think I just talk about myself. I think I just was, doing things quickly on impulse, or following. When you're young, you're not really looking at, say, the whole picture. And so this is what we want to do: is we want to calculate the whole picture, what the building process is, and all of that. So these things take time, and so sometimes our scriptures use seed time and harvest, right? But these things take time, and I think that we just want it real quickly, or the new and the approved, and all of this before thinking it through. So a lot of decisions that we are making, right, and not all, right, not all of them are. This is not like a bad decision, but I think that it would be a better full scope of the bigger picture when we take out time to calculate or to look at what we're going to build. And that's part of the thing that, some of the things that we'll talk about on tonight. And like I said, that I just wanted to encourage you to build you up, but you can use this in whatever area you need it. So we need to do what? We need to make it necessary first to prepare ourselves, right? Proverbs 24:27. We want to prepare yourself. So prepare, we need to make sure that we do that in every area. Now, sometimes, we have to look at it, because I think our excitement get into it, the way we feel get into it, and all of these things get in there. So when it comes to the kingdom of the Most High, that's what we need to consider is, now, what this coming into covenant, walking out the things of the Father, what will this really, how is this going to really shape my life? And then what is it that I'm going to have to in a sense, adjust, and sometimes I use the word give up, but you never give up. It's always a plus. It's only to give up to take up. So you give up something in order to take up the things of the Father. And so it's always like that. And so just remember that. So, sometimes I know I used to, I got to, take this and don't do that. But I need to add up the cost because everybody is involved when I come into the kingdom here. And so what stage you come in really make you look at the whole picture. What stage are you coming into to that, right? If you're coming in as a husband, if you're coming as a wife, as you're coming in as husband and wife and whole family, is you're coming in cousin, grandmother, all of those things, And so sometimes we need to kind of slow down and prepare ourselves. And so the first thing that scripture says, prepare your outside work. So we need to start first on the outside, right? And so we know that that's laying the foundation or whatever, right? But in this, and if we think about the outside is all of the things before we build the home. So I want us to maybe have a picture of, in this explanation of having a home, right? And on the outside of that home, I'm preparing a place. If we think in horticulture, we would be thinking about, okay, is this good land? Because I'm going to have to plant. I'm going to have to water. So I'm looking at the whole thing. Why buy this land and I can't use the dirt? I can't use the land that I'm getting ready to buy. So that's what we have to do, is be in a place where we can prepare ourselves. I have to look at everything on the outside. And before we build our home, most of the times we building on the outside. And what I mean by that is, maybe you have a job, you're going to work, you're looking at what you have to do. You established in those things, right? And so us men, we establish those things where we can bring in our bride, right? We bring in our bride, but we have to prepare the outside work first. Now, when I had got married, I did not prepare. I didn't really even know the scriptures, right? In this sense. And so I didn't really prepare on the outside. I was preparing after I got into the situation, right? And so, yes, you can make it through, but without preparing yourself, it's going to be a difficult road. It's already difficult. So we don't want to enhance the difficulties that we already have to go through, because we will go through to those things. Now, the difficulty sometimes, and I'm not talking about the difficulties that burden you down or weigh you down. It's just that if you don't prepare, then you won't know how to ease into that situation, And so, unfortunately, I didn't prepare my outside first. And so sometimes because of that, then my family would have to suffer because I did not, prepare that. Now, suffer in a sense, not a, the bad thing, but it could have been a lot better, So there are steps to whatever we're doing, And so if you plant the seed, you got to dig up the earth first, right? You got to dig the ground up first. You just can't throw the seeds in that. Well, you can scatter the seeds. We know you do that according to what you're planting, okay? But most time they got to go in the dirt. So you just can't just throw them out and say, hey, I hope that it gets ready, and then you find out that you don't have no food. And so sometimes the preparation of all things is not there. So it is sometimes when I think about coming into the things of the Most High, because so many things around me, I may not be prepared. I know what I want. I know that I need to serve him. He's the creator of the universe. And then when I look at his word, I begin to read something, and then all the voices around me are telling me what this is. But those encounters that I have with the Most High, those times I said, wait a minute, it is something to this. It's what's going on. And then what it is that I need, right, to come into this. What would I have to give up? Would it change my job? Will I have to move? How would this work? If I come into covenant and my wife don't, or if my husband do and I don't, if the children, how's it going? It's an effect all the way down. And so what I mean, instead of a quickly situation, then what we call curious, then I will get with people that is already in the covenant and begin to go among them and see what's going on and begin to learn what's going on, because I can really count up this cost. Is this what I really, really desire? Because it's better to get into it and have a good picture and know what you want to do versus just jumping in. And then you find yourself it's be difficult again. You hadn't prepared like you should have. And so, and to make it fit for yourself in the field. That's what it said, right? So we're going to make those things right. So we want to get in, get them under assembly. And I'm just saying, get a teacher that you can see and to ask those questions and begin to work those things out on how this is going to look for my own life, right? How is this going to look for my own life? And so whenever count the cost or whatever, and I'm going to throw this, it's not a side note, but I'm going to go back to the things of the covenant just in a minute, give you an example here. As if you're going to move, right, you need a U-Haul. So I need to count up the cost. I need to see how much a U-Haul, how much that costs, how much per mile, all of these things. I just can't go down there and say, well, I want a U-Haul and I don't have the proper funds to even cover the U-Haul. Then I have to pack up. Then I have to, all of those things are there, right? You have to prepare yourself. You just can't go get the U-Haul and say, oh, we moving today. You're going to have to get your stuff together and move, all things being equal, right? You have to get your stuff and move out in that, but you have to prepare that. So it's best to prepare and plan, so most times you need the blueprint of what you're going to do. So blueprints can be used in this fashion of anything that you want to do. So you want to get it together, especially when it's something that is critical, say to your life and then your family's life. And if it's affect others, no matter what we do affects others. But when I say affect others, I mean the fact that you had a family or you do have a family or it's just you still need to plan. You still need that blueprint. What is your blueprint, though? Do you have one? We need a blueprint. So if somebody asks you what you're going to be doing next year, right, you should have your blueprint. Next month, you should have a blueprint. So if somebody asks you what is your plan for next month, you can at least have a blueprint of what's going on, right? And it looks differently for all of us because of what areas we in, how we doing different things. But we have to make sure that we prepare ourselves. And so sometimes the different things that come upon us or the roads that we have to go down is because we have not built correctly. So we're not prepared. And then you shall build your house. So you prepare yourself, then you build your house. Right? You prepare yourself and you build your house. So it's the same thing in the covenant with the Most High. Then what you're doing is you preparing yourself. This is what I really want. Now I'm going to have to look at the things. Now I'm going to have to keep the Shabbat, and I may work on Shabbat right now. How is that going to look? So I have to prepare myself because I know that all of these things is going to affect things. How far away will I have to gather to the next assembly? Will I have to pack up and move? I think I said that before. So all of these things are there, all of these things are there. And when you get married, when they get together, one of the things is you take on her family, his family, and vice versa, right? And you take on all of that. So you need to meet mother. You need to understand the background and the history of father, of the uncles and all of that, because you're just not marrying the person, but you are marrying everything that's attached to that person. Right. So it could be according to what it is. It could be ex-husbands. It could be ex-boyfriends. It could be so much that it apply for that. So you have to prepare. And I think most times that's where we go into the lack of. And so we cannot build a proper home. We need to build a proper home. Other words, we want to build the foundation that we need. We have to be able to build that. And so that's what we are looking at to make sure that everything, right, is in its proper place. So it's a way of doing this, right? It's a way of doing it. And whatever you're doing, it's a way of doing it. And then when it's coming to the thing, of serving the Most High, it's always that. And so we can be ready when the challenges arise. So we can be prepared. The most things is not to be prepared when somebody does something, you encounter something unaware when you wasn't prepared for that. That's what it is. And sometimes things come upon us and we have to make sure that we are ready for those things. And so when it comes to the things of the Father, we have to make sure that, oh, okay, this is what I want. This, I want to give my life. This is a life-giving situation. So I have to count up them costs. It's no longer about me. Now it's about the things of the Father and the kingdom, and then everything that consists of. So I'm giving my life. But before I do that, I need to count up the costs, because can I really do this? Can I really do this? Right? Do I have a real desire to do all that he wants and desires of me? And because I can do it. And so in Luke 14 and 28, for who of you wishing, right, to build a tower? That's where he came at. Now you can read that whole thing, because it starts in some good areas, and it challenges us in some good areas. So the thing is to have the desire, right, to build. The thing is, you can have those things. Yes, they're there, but you're going to have to prepare that, because you know what you're doing. So that's the blueprint. You know what you're doing. So when you're serving the Most High, you know what you're doing. You know that I'm giving my life for servanthood. You already become a servant. So do you really want to be a servant? Right? When you come into this, why come into covenant? Then you don't want to be a servant. Why come into covenant if you're not willing to love? Why come into covenant if you're not willing to forgive? Because all of these things are there, and in this proper place. And maybe I wasn't one that know how to do these things. Well, the kingdom is going to mold and shape me into such a person, but I have to be willing to do that. So I have to be willing to do that. So one of the things is, if you're going to build this tower, then he says, does not sit down first, right? It's the first. It's a first in everything. It's a first in everything that you do. So you sit down first, and then what you do is you count the cost. There's a cost to this. You have to count it up, right? You have to calculate it. You have to get it together. We know these terms in English anyway. We need to look at what we're going to do. We need to prepare ourselves instead of just jumping in, right? And then we are overwhelmed because we did not count the cost. And then so we want the joy and the excitement of all of that. But when all of the excitement and everything is gone, did we count the cost up though? Because there's a cost there. And you have a goal, and that goal is whether he has enough. So when you start out, you have to have enough. I know, in this day and time, we have a lot that we have to borrow, right? And the way that things are set up is almost here in America anyway. It's almost set up where you're going to have to almost pull for something else unless you inherit something. And so, but we need to make sure, and it's a good place to always stay, is make sure that we have enough to complete it, right? And so when you come in a covenant to the Most High, you want to make sure that you have enough. You count the costs, you sit down and say, yeah, this is what I want to do, right? And then you have enough to complete it. So whatever you do, you make sure that you have enough to complete it. If you don't have enough, then you're going to be off, right? You need that. You can't get into it and say, oh, the Father will provide. Well, you got to count up the cost first. Did you already have enough? Because there's a reason for this, right? There's a reason for this. You can have those desires. You can have a wife. You can have a desire to have a wife, but you have to take care of the wife that you have a desire for, right? So all of those things. So now I got to count this cost up, and we have a cost today, right? I'm talking about today's cost. Whatever whenever you got married, it could have been years ago, but then you had to count out them costs. Today, the cost is different from when I got married. The cost is different. Talking when I say cost, I'm talking here. I'm talking about finances or whatever. Those things are different. So you need to look at all of those things, right? And those things will help you make a decision. Sometimes we're not counting up the costs. We just making decisions without counting up the costs, right? And then we find ourselves in a different situation that we did not need to be in if we what? First did what? Count up the cost. That's what we needed to do first. And so those are the things that we needed to do, is to make sure that we count up the cost when? First. So that's the first thing you do. And then there's a designation there telling you that I must complete it. So if I count up the cost, then I must complete that. So I have to think before I act. I have to think before I act. Whatever you're doing, always think it through, right? Now, there's some unseen cost to whatever you're doing, right? But you plan for the unseen, right? So if you have $20 and what you building is $10, then you have enough, just in case it runs up to $15 or $20. You have enough. You prepare for that. You understand? Now, see, even if you went over to 25, that's something that you did not prepare for, but it'd be different if you just prepare for 10 and ended up at 25, right? There's a difference in that. And he says, saying this man began. Now, this is what people would say when they see that, right? Because those around you know what you're building. It could be family members. It could be your wife. It could be your husband, whatever. They know around you, whatever that is that you are building, you know. This man began to build and was unable to even finish what he began. And you know what they'll say? Did he count up the cost first? And so it is the same thing when you come into the covenant with the Most High. Did you count up the cost first? Because there's a big cost to this. A life-changing cost. This is not a religion, you know. Now, if you want a religion, that's different. They have a different flow. But if you want the kingdom of the Most High, right, there's a cost to this. And as you read your scriptures, you'll see that there is a cost. But if you first calculate it up, it's just as easy. I can give my life to servanthood. I can give my life where he'll be able to lead and guide me, right? So I need to think first. Focus on what I know. Focus on what I know. When it comes to the kingdom, you focus on what you know. Stop going after what you don't know. Focus on what you know. Like I was talking earlier, is do what you need to do first. So before you move on to something else, be a finisher. Did you hear what I'm saying to you? That's a power up moment. Be a finisher of the first thing, and then you can move on to the next thing. So if we hop, then you never get nothing finished. And then they would look back and say, not only was he unable to finish, but you're never a finisher. It's okay to have different things, but make sure that when you look back, those different things are finished, right? Those are finished, you know. And that's one thing I got, you know, sometimes I have things that I start a project. Have you ever did this? Start a project, that I go to another one. Oh, man, I see that. I'm over here. Oh, man, I turn around and I look. I know my wife probably looked the same. he ain't finishing nothing, you know. But I need to be a finisher. So I'm talking to myself. I need to be a finisher before I move on to that, because then they'll look at it and say he was able to finish. So what I do, I got distracted. Know so much that I didn't count out the cost. So don't get distracted. First, you count up the cost, because there's so many things to pull in on us, so many things to distract us from what we need to do, right? And we need to be able to finish. We need to be finishers. So that's something we can meditate on this week in your life, or when you hear this, right? Meditate on being a finisher. Now look back and see what you have not finished when it comes to the things of the Father that we have in our heart. Say it to the Father, this is what I want to do, right? And if you quickly do that, right, but out counting up the cost, right? And so we want to make sure that when we go through those things, to make sure that we are finishers, you know. And so when we're doing that, we always have to be aware of our surroundings. Always be aware of your surroundings, and always be one that investigate those things on how I can finish this, whatever it might be, right? You want to be a finisher. You want to be able to do that, because you are teaching, say if you have children, you're teaching those children, and then you're also teaching those that are around you as well. Likewise. So if you say this, likewise, when he has laid the foundation, That's all you want to do is lay a foundation. Many times when I look back, I didn't have the foundation that I needed, and it is tough. It is tough once you get out and then you realize that I don't have a proper foundation, and that makes everything else weak. It makes everything else weak. And it's the same thing when you come into the things of the Father. We need to slow down and get our foundation. That foundation sometimes takes a minute. If you're thinking about a house, most of the times today, if you're talking about a house, they have to lay that concrete where it still has to, make sure that it hardens, right? And then you go out and then you start building the different framework on that. But if you get in there and know that foundation wasn't right, your whole house could be leaning in the natural, right? It just was not. It could still be livable. Did you know that some foundations cracked, but people still live in them until they can get them fixed? So what happens to us? Yes, you functioning, but it's not a proper foundation. You're not a finisher, because your foundation is messed up. It is unable to finish it. It says, so the foundation, lay the foundation, he is unable to finish. All who see it, somebody is always watching you. So when you claim the things, listen, I follow the Most High, should I say, and look, who see you, they see it. And then if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing or should be doing, when you building this house, when you are walking in the things of the Most High, then you become a mockery. Then they mock him, right? You become that, right? It has no weight in it, right? Because when they see it, people see it. So we have to make sure that we count the cost up. And you can always make it better. You can always start all over again. Wherever you at right now, you can always start. Because even if your foundation is cracked, it can be fixed. It can be fixed. You never surrender to that. It's because you did not do that. But in the midst of it now, I have to, wherever I find myself, I have to calculate because I'm building. And so we build all the way to the end when it comes to the thing of the kingdom. You have to endure to the end and you have to build to the end, right? So you have to count up the cost. There's a cost to this. And that cost could be many of things, right? When we thinking about that. So make sure that we are building. Proverbs chapter 22:3, it talks about this clever one. Now it's talking here more like when we see evil. So for seeing evil, right? When we see that, then he hides himself. So sometimes when we see the things, when we walking in the things of the Most High, you have to use the wisdom and the knowledge for things, right? You have to use that. You have to be honest. And then you have to act with integrity in those things always, right? And so when you are building this foundation, the foundation is already laid. So when you come into the covenant, the foundation is already laid. So the cost that you counting up is what you're going to do. Not so much to change, I'm going to make this kingdom better. The kingdom is already established. You coming into it. Don't need you to establish the kingdom. It needs for you to count up the cost in order to engross yourself in the kingdom, right? Because it's already been set. It's already been laid. We don't need a great new revelations. It's already there. Only thing we need to do is get with it. There's people already walking it out. There's people already there. It's a kingdom. It's a body. And Yeshua is the head of that. Right. So it's already there. We don't need new inventions. There's no new inventions. It's already here. So it's already telling us he hides himself. But the simple goes on and are punished. So in other words, they don't worry about this. They just go. But when you go, that whatever the evil here is lying for you or waiting for you is going to be there. So you have to be one that is clever. You're going to have to be one that's clever in that. And so when you build in your house, when you're walking in the kingdom, when you're doing all these things, you have to be clever in what you're doing. You have to understand what you're doing. It is very, very important as we begin to continue to build. So you want to be able to build. You want to calculate the costs in your building and all that you're doing, right? And you have to be willing to uphold Torah. So what cost is you have to be willing to uphold the commandments of the Most High. You have to be that, right? No matter what. So that's one thing. Now, what that entails when I count my cost up, right? Can't get into it. And I said, oh, because we're going to say, or somebody's going to say, or look at you and say, well, they tried, but they didn't realize what the cost was. Because some people, I didn't know it was all of this, right? You're right. You're right. You didn't, because why? You didn't count up the cost. Now, you can still get into it and quite don't have the understanding of it, but I want you to think, because I want you to be a wise person, right? To be wise when you begin to come into this, right? So you're ready to be a Talmudim, or you're ready to be a Talmudim of the Mashiach, right? The Talmudim, a disciple. Are you ready for that, right? Not to disciple, but are you ready to be disciple? Are you ready to be taught before you the teacher, right? That's important. So you have to count up the cost. You have to count up the cost on all of this, of how you living and living, how we live. We live by the instructions of the Father, no matter what. So that's the real question: is, are you ready? Have you counted up the cost? Right? Because there's a cost to it. You can ask questions on your cost. You ask somebody anything else, right? Do I do this? How much I do this? Do I have to do this? Do I have to? What about that? What about this? I need to do this. And so the Father requires all of that. And when he requires it, you need to be top notch on it, right? When it comes to the things of the Father, first, remember first, right? So we are building those things that are around us, and then they have proper priority. They have proper positions in that as well. So we need to look at it from God, from the Father's perspective. We need to look at that. And then we will be able, if you count up your costs right, you will be able to follow the master, right? You'll be able to follow him, because in that he will entail and have us to do the things necessary, right? Necessary to count the cost up, right? So even if he send you from afar or whatever, you need to count the cost up first, right? Before you endeavor to do something. You have to make sure that you have the cost of that before you do it. Most times if you going on a vacation, you have to count up all those costs. Sometimes we don't have enough costs, then it causes us to go into debt. So when you don't properly do something, then it causes you to go into debt. Now, I don't want you to think about money there, what I said. I want you to think about anything, and you can fill in the blank, is that it causes you to pull or to borrow when you don't have enough. So when you have enough, nobody that has enough has to borrow. Did you understand that? Nobody that has enough has to borrow in order to do it, right? In that, because it's very, very important. So we would say, if right, that you can do such and such a thing, and I know I can do this, then I won't need no one else. I won't have to borrow from no one else. Now, we help us to one another, right? We do that. And then we find ourselves in the places where we have to borrow, right? You need cars, houses, and land. If I'm moving it up to this modern day, you have those things. It's always, and even in Torah, it gives us a framework on how to do that without the burden of that. It tells us, because there's going to be a time for the release for my brothers. A release is a time for jubilee. It's a time to release those things. It's a time for joy, right? It's a time for that. So, but it has to be in the framework of the things of what the Father has given us. So when we are building, we have to calculate the cost. Count the cost, count it up, because it is very, very important. And then as we begin to walk this out, we'll find out in different areas of our life, we can count the cost up. Most times we'll do it anyway. If we say we're going on a trip, I go back to a trip or a vacation again. To fill your tank up, you have to know how much it costs. You have to calculate that. Then the first thing I do, the gas is different here in Central Texas than it will be in California if that's where I'm going, right? If I'm going to California, the gas is different. So when I calculate, I have to make sure that I know, and it's easy to see what the gas is there, but I have to calculate from that. I can't go down there and say, oh, I don't have enough for the gas to even get back. Why? Because I didn't calculate it right. And so it helps us to prepare ourselves. And so what we're doing now is preparing ourselves, right, for the coming of the Mashiach. So we preparing right now. We preparing ourselves. Why? What we're doing is we building something. We calculating all of these things to be ready for when he comes. So I'm calculating what his desire for me, what I need to do to present myself, right? To present myself, and what he calls for us to do in the kingdom, right? And for one another and with one another. So it's always good to calculate the cost. Always good to do that. Let me see if there's anybody else in the room I may not put up, but it's always good. And I'm gonna get ready about to wrap this up. But I think that we have the gist of all things, right? We have the gist of this, and the real question is, are you ready? Right? Go ahead and count up the cost. Are you ready? You can do it. You can count that cost up and say, yes, I can do this, Or you may have to say, yes, I need to wait. Wait before this and wait before that, in that before you can do something. So you can always plan. There's nothing wrong with planning, but get your blueprint. Know what you want to do next week. Know what you're going to do. Get those things in. And most of us have, we have all kind of planners. We got all kind of, what I want to say, things that are exposed for us to use, exposable for us to use. Calendars, everything, reminders. We have all of those things. We can know, and today you can almost get numbers, and it's just something. The way that the information we have all together, right? And all of those things. So you never go to war. If you look at that without counting up the costs in that, you never would do that. And so that's a very, very important as we begin to move on that. I wanted to, there was a script. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Well, let's go. It was something else that I wanted to. If I change this, let me see if it'll work for me. All right. See if we can change this. I can put up, it's possibility to put up this scripture. I wanted to, it just came, it's 14. And let's see if we can, give me a minute here and we can run it. I wanted to, it was something else when I was even reading that. I put those scriptures on the slide to make sure that I could get to it. And all right, counting up the cost. Oh, if I could have got it earlier. It's never too late to start though. I can start counting up those costs real quick, and to be, I was talking to someone else. I wanted to be, sometimes I get started. I count the cost up. I get started, but somehow it seems to get dropped. I did not stick to my blueprint, and it gets by me. When it does that, it gets by me. So I didn't, when I don't stick to it, it gets by me. And I'm still working on how is that really going on? How does that happen in that? Okay. I was trying to, get a woman. Do be patient with me just for 1 second here. Maybe I can, didn't have this in there, but I wanted to go back over to 14. I just looking up the scriptures is what I'm doing. I think that, we was down at 28 building a tower, but it was something else I wanted to be in there. And that's, again, that's what I wanted to show you that, let me see here, to show you where it was. I had a thought that it's sovereign here, what sovereign going to a fight against a sovereign and does not. Now see that right. I mean, put that. Let me go solo with that one where we can see it. That sit down first. That's where we are. So I was dealing with them first. He first sit down and take counsel, right? See, so before you get into something, you need to sit down first and take some counsel what is able, because you got, it's just simple. You got 10,000, right, to meet him with, come against him with 20,000, right? So that's again, sometimes it takes counsel right here, right? Even though you can do that, you need counsel in order to, once you sit down first, you're trying to get it together. Because in this case, somebody else is involved. If not, while another is still far away, right? Before you even engage into something. And, so he going to send someone to make sure that we can get some peace going on, right? We have to make sure. We need to make sure that the peace can go on. What is it? Well, maybe if they got 20,000, maybe I need to get some peace. Maybe I'm not to even start to do that. So sometimes it's just I was looking at it was a gentleman, like he was, I don't know if it was, say judo or karate or whatever it was, but he was like the master. And there was this other guy, he was just lifting, he was just real strong, had a lot of muscle, and then he thought by his muscle that he could, because the teacher of that, he was there. So he went in, like pushed him and kind of challenged him. At first, I thought, well, the cameras are rolling. I thought maybe, but it had a concept in there and it looked legit from there, right? And it was legit when it comes down to technique versus your strength. So if he would have got some counsel first, he wouldn't have found himself, because the guy that was doing it, jujitsu, I don't know, whatever that was, whatever he was doing, the guy defeated him and he could not do nothing, right? All of his strength. I mean, he was puffed, that we say it, or buffed, or whatever. He had, out of all his strength, that guy had some techniques, and he twirled and grabbed him and twisted him and all of that. And before he knew it, he was on the mat. He was on the mat. And then he went in, and a young lady that the teacher had been training, right? Oh, he grabbed her. He came and put her up there. And you know what he did? That lady choked him out. That was a real choke out. Now, at first I thought it was the kind of set up, but I'm looking at it. So he was choked out that time. Out of all of his muscles, right? Out of all, I wish I came across that. I wish I had that, right? But I think you have the idea what I'm talking about is you need counsel sometimes in order to see where you're going. You don't have to be by yourself according to what you're doing. Let that be that. Really be able to be that, right? And so, there is a giving up, like right here it says, everyone who of you who does not give up all. See right here? Now you have to count up that cost. You can't come in on what you want to do. You have to count up that cost. Who don't give up all he has, right? So in order for you to be a taught one, and this is very important, everybody is not a taught one, right? Everybody don't want it, but you got to be able to give up your all. Right. And if you read that, you'll see what's more in there. That's really a good thing in that, to give up your all, you see. And then you have to. Oh, okay. I thought of something else here. Leviticus chapter 19 is what I was looking at. Right. So let's go to Leviticus chapter 19 real quick here. And let's see, I think like around verse 3, right? This is what the Father told us. Speak to the congregation of the children of Israel. Say to them, be set apart. So that's one thing you have to know. I'm counting up costs now. So if you want to count up costs, one of them is I'm going to have to give up all. And then I'm going to have to be a set apart unto Yah, right? Your Elohim. He said, for he's set apart. So when I come into the kingdom, there's a giving up. I need to count up what is that? It says, wait a minute now here, each one of you shall fear his mother and his father. See that there? And God, what it said there? God, what? The Shabbats. That's a S. So when I come over, I have to realize that, yes, I'm going to fear them and I'm going to have to listen to them, right? But they cannot go, mother and father can't go against the Shabbat, right? Because that's in there. And the Shabbat, for I am Yahweh, your Elohim, right? So when somebody tell me it don't matter if your mother or your father tell you about don't keep the Shabbat, that's a red flag. That's a new word that I got. That is a red flag in that, right? No, that's a no. You don't listen to that one, right? But that goes along with it. So I need to count up that cost, right? The father didn't change that. So I had to count up the cost if he didn't change it. I wanted to go back over to Luke 14 again. I know I got you excited. I said, I'm getting ready to stop, didn't I? Just give me a few minutes. I was trying to see what made me go over. It said invite you. It's just about giving up. It's good. I did go ahead and read Luke 14 again, of course, in that. And I had when I was going against it, reading this, should I say, here's what if anyone to come unto me and does not hate his mother and his father, that like sometimes that's or his wife or his children or his brother or his sister, or his own life too, his life too, he is unable to be my taught one. Now right there in Leviticus, he was always saying, listen, that's mother and father. He said that's what you do, you fear them, you keep the Shabbat, right? You keep that. So if somebody is telling you no to, that's not good, right? So no matter what mother say, wife say, children say, you're gonna have to keep the Shabbat. You're gonna have to keep the commandments of the Father. You're gonna have to walk in this, right? And in order for you to be able to know that the master or to be a taught one of the master, right? You have to be a taught one. You don't come in and teach one. You have to be a taught one, right? And whoever does not bear his stake and come after me is unable to be my taught. I'm counting up the cost. Hello. I'm counting up the cost. There's some cost in here. I might have to think about this. You mean to tell me I have to give up all? I may have to give up. I may lose all. In the natural, because you don't lose, you always listen, you don't lose, you put away and then you gain, you never lose, right? But this here, you have to be able to stand, right? You have to be able to stand. And then he goes into building the tower, you see. So I could have went all of that, but of course the time restraints of what we have, we could have did the whole chapter, I guess. But right after that he was talking about build, so it's in this context. You have to realize that, what man goes and build a tower. So before you just come in here talking about, oh, I love him, count up the cost, right? There's some cost with this. You say, oh, I want to get married to him. Well, are you willing to be a wife? I want to get married to, are you willing to be a husband? Right? You have to count up the cost. You know what comes with that? Do you know what comes with that, right? Oh, I'll marry you. But when you have the ring, you put that ring on the finger, but it's more to it than that, right? It's more to it than that. You're gonna have to spend your life together. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Because you're gonna have to you're gonna have to bear something here, right? So anytime you come in, this here, when you come into him, that you listen. They talked about him, they're going to talk about us, right? It's the same thing. Our master, we are connected to someone that people cannot stand, right? They hate Yeshua, right? And they would try to get rid of anyone that loves him, that would call him the Messiah. We right there. Yeah, they ask, do you love him? Right? We're talking about giving up your life here. So count up the cost. Count the cost up. There's a cost now, right? There's a cost. Are you going to lay the right foundation in that? You know. So if you want to be able to be his taught ones, you see. So we realize it. Then he goes right into the salt. If his salt is good, right? But if somehow if you become tasteless, it's no good for nothing. So count up the cost. So count up the cost. I encourage you to count up the cost because we need to be worth more, right? We need to be worth something. In order to do that, though, you have to count up the cost first, and then we won't find ourselves in it. All right, family. I think I had built enough on that, huh? It's so much more that can be said. I hope that this would be an encouragement. Talking to my brother Sid, I don't know if he's at the house by now, but we missed you in that. I could have bounced some things off of you, I'm sure. I just want to also include the recovery request of the healing. We have our own dear sister Faith. We want to continue to pray for her. We want to pray for my wife. She's been under today, and that we will pray for her that she would feel much better through the night. She was up and she's been coughing and all of those things that we go through in that. So we want to continue to pray for her as well as Anthony, those that I know of at this particular time, right? And so even those of you that might be looking at this later or whatever, we always want to pray for one another. So even when you may listen to this or whatever, we desire that you go to the Father for those that are in recovery and those that are sick among us, that the Father would hear our cry and that he would continue to have mercy on us. And then anyone's name that I did not call, you are included in all things, right? So we want to pray for all of those that are in recovery in those things, and that way we can continue to build up one another in that. So grateful. Those of you that are still with us and hanging in there, we just appreciate you all that are present. And like I say, we'll follow this up, and I want you to have I don't know, the best of all what the Father has for you. That is my heart. That's my heart. That's the reason we do what we want to do. And as a shepherd, I want to know that always I talk to you as well as all of you that are listening to this. And that's the heart that I'm coming from in that. We know who the chief shepherd is. But we want to make sure that we all come into the unity of the faith, right? The unity of the faith. And may the Father enrich you in all things. And I have a desire that please count up the cost. Count up the cost. Please count up the cost. Shalom, shalom, family.